Hello, everyone, and welcome to another ToloTalks session. Just as a quick reminder, if you have questions about today's webinar, please send them our way via the Q&A section that you should see at the bottom or at the top of your screen. And at the end of the webinar, we will respond your inquiries. Today, we'll be presenting to you our Tolomatic Demo Studio. As you know very well by now, this sales environment is the toughest we've seen in decades. As sales or technical people, visiting a client in person, seeing an application live, looking at a machine running physically are all very essential components to understand the customer's needs. In the last months, unfortunately, these options have not been available to us very often. Visiting a client in person nowadays is very challenging and sometimes not even allowed because of their policies. And the result of this is that business can suffer. The sales cycle increase, communication doesn't flow the same way, etc. And for this reason, we've had to rely on technology to keep us all connected. This indeed is taken from a book called Virtual Selling. And it says, even though we know that an in-person meeting is more effective, the efficiency you gain by shifting initial meetings to video calls more than makes up for not being there face-to-face. You'll be able to meet with and qualify more prospects, resulting in bigger pipeline and more sales. Okay. Those are very true words. And what a better way to do this than with a properly set up environment that you can utilize for this purpose. Being that a lot of our business is now done virtually, you name it, training sessions, webinars, and presentations online, that's all we know nowadays. In Tolomatic, we understand that the need to connect with your clients in a better way. And that's why we want you to put our demo studio to work. The main purpose of today's session is make you aware that we have tools that could be used so you can present our solutions in real time to your clients. And this way, build sales by educating your customers in an interactive meeting. What are the main uses of our demos? These sessions will introduce our static demos to show our product line, showing different families or show the different features they have and benefits, or moving demos to show how we can control position, speed, acceleration, deceleration, and force in a very easy manner. Not only the presenter or us at Tolomatic would be able to control these demos, but we encourage the participants in the meeting to get involved and remotely control the units so they have a more virtual, hands-on experience. This is a very engaging way to train your customers and also see what technology is currently available at Tolomatic. How to start using the studio is very easy. Contact your regional sales manager and schedule a time with them. We'll take care of the rest. We will make sure we have your applications engineer or your regional sales manager ready to go and show the demo to your customer. But please make sure that the demo you select in advance is something that you think your customer may be interested in. During this presentation, we will show you the different options we currently have. And we will start by showing you our ACSI servo motor with our RSA rod style actuator. This is our ACSI product. It is a servo motor that has an integrated motor and a drive in the back. This drive can allow you to communicate in different ways with a PLC. It could be done via Ethernet IP. It could be done via Profinet, Modbus TCP, or EtherCAT. But besides that, you could also control it with analog or digital inputs in a way that you could just send commands either from a simple button, a PLC, an HMI, etc. And this is connected to our RSA actuator, which is our rod style actuator, one of our most famous actuators we sell. And so how would you show this to your customer? I'm going to start sharing my screen. We have a way to control this called Tolomatic Motion Interface. So your customer, once we have set up a meeting with you and your customer, they should be able to control this via the Zoom meeting. So remotely, they can start moving all the different characteristics of this software. For example, they would be able to connect, see what type of actuator and motor we have here. They should be able to also move within tabs so they can actually start configuring all the features of this actuator. For example, in this case, we have an RSA actuator. It's the size 24. It has a solid knot 0.4. It has a 6-inch stroke length. It's mounted in a reverse parallel way, meaning that the actuator is on this side, and then it has a reverse parallel that goes to the motor, and everything is connected via a belt, right? So, and then it has one of our ACSI motors, which is a NEMA 23 with an incremental encoder. Once we go through these steps, your customer will be able to see how easy it's to program one of our units. They can program index moves. They can program an analog position move that can be done via 0 to 10 volts or 4 to 20 milliamps. They can control it in a pneumatic way, like if they were replacing another pneumatic unit they used to have, they can use the same signals from an electrovalve. Instead of reprogramming all the PLC, they could use the same signals and just send 24-volt inputs to our drive. Or they can do it via a protocol of communication. As I mentioned before, it could be Ethernet IP, Modbus TCP, Profinet, or EtherCAT. In this case, for this example, we're just going to be doing our input and output index move. But you can define the different inputs in this drive. You can do software stop, stop motion, limit switches, etc. And these 4 inputs is what we're gonna define like that today, just as an example. You can also set your fault values, what to do in case you get a position error. You can do stop motion, disable the motor, etc., right? Then in our safety limits tab, you are able to define the tolerances in position criteria, a following error, the motion limits in terms of speed and acceleration, and your current limits. What is the peak current maximum, the continuous current maximum, and how long do you want the drive to stay in those values to throw or trigger a fault. Also, you can control the positive and negative limits of position. You can set up your home routine. In this case, please take a look at this. When we press home, the actuator will go towards the end of stroke. And once it's gonna do that via this tab right here. The routine as of now, it's set up as a 0.5 inch per second speed towards the home. It has a 1 inch per second towards the offset, acceleration, deceleration, and offset, and the force. And then, this is the most interesting tab, I would say. In this tab, you can show your customer that an electric actuator, you're actually able to control different variables compared to an hydraulic or a pneumatic product. In this case, we can control position, velocity, acceleration, deceleration, and force. And it is as simple as modifying these values right here. We can modify position, etc., etc., and then that way, the customer remotely should be able to start creating motion. In this case, compared to a pneumatic actuator that would have only 2 positions, an electric actuator is able to do different routines. As you can see, the extend 1 goes at 5 inches per second with a certain velocity, acceleration, deceleration, but the way back can go slower, can go faster, whatever you prefer. So that's one of the main advantages of using an electric actuator. And it's way easier to show these to your customer by actually them seeing it in a video, right? And not only that, but they were the ones that programmed it. So this software is really, really simple to use. As you saw, we took probably a couple minutes right now in this example, but in real life, it really takes about 5 minutes to do it. You can always rely on your Tolomatic support to do this, but it should be pretty simple. All right, so that's our ACSI motor drive combination with our RSA product. So I also wanted to show you some of our other demos we have available right now. So now that you know that we have a studio and we can present stuff to your clients like this, so now what do we have available out there? So if you go to our website, there's a section in our website that will show all of this. In this case, you can select the one that I just showed you, which is our RSA with an ACSI. The main things to consider on this one is that you can do remote control. You can show infinite positioning to your clients. You can show the ability to control axle, decels, force, etc. We have other ones too. You can do an RSA servo pressing. This is a demo that we use to show how repeatable and how controlled the motion profile can be. A lot of clients have applications that they have to repeat within a certain percentage, 2 or 3% repeatability. And this demo, what it's showing is that it gets to the same position every time. And not only that, but it also does it with the same force every time. Obviously, it has a certain percentage of repeatability, but electric actuators are really good for that. Also, in this demo, we actually included a load cell. And this load cell it gives away an input to the drive that it's used as a feedback to know how much force you're developing in the system. So this combination of the rod-style electric actuator and the servo motor, it's great for a lot of people. All right. The other one we have is this pneumatic replacement actuator setup. And basically what this is doing is that 4 actuators are moving synchronously via the signals that are sent to them by HMI. This is all controlled via Modbus. And the way it's done is that we have predefined recipes for creating a motion profile that it could be used in an industrial setup. The main one that we've seen is when people are trying to do some changes in sites in their production lines. For example, there's a lot of manufacturing companies that they have a lot of hours that they need to be doing preventative maintenance, corrective maintenance, because they have their conveyor and they need to adjust the size of the product they're manufacturing. With pneumatic actuators, that's pretty difficult to do because everything is mechanically done. So with an electric actuator, you can just press a button as you're seeing there in your video, and it has a predefined recipe with the force, accelerations, etc. that you want, and that's pretty much what you need to do. So you eliminate downtimes, and also the return of investment is pretty quick. We also have some fun ones. This one in particular is our ACS servo drive. And what it's doing here, it's controlling, instead of a linear position, it's actually controlling a rotational position. We also have that capability of doing degrees or revolutions. Well, this demo, it's basically just a wheel of fortune. So you select a random number of degrees, and it rotates into a position that it'll give you, a certain price. It could be Tolomatic where or whatever. We can define that when it comes to the time. But basically, it's to show the capability of the ACS drives as well to be controlled via a rotary mode. So yeah, this is a real wheel of fortune. So if you wanted to schedule a meeting with your clients, they will actually get real prices. So that's one of them. We also have this dual direction MX. This in particular, it's pretty, a lot of people find it really interesting. What it's doing here is that it's using 2 screws. Well, it's the same screw, but with different threads. One is a left thread and the other one is a right thread. And they're joined in the middle. And when the screw is rotated, one of the carriers goes to one side and the other one goes in the opposite direction, right? So with the same motor, you can control 2 carriers at the same time, and they just are acting as a mirror. That's used a lot in gripping applications. For example, when you want to grip something like this and then transport it into another location. This is a really good demo to show that kind of capability. These are used in pick and place. These are used in operations that need to press something or compress something, but you name it, right? There's many applications. Or LZT, or servo place. This is definitely our fastest rod style actuator out there. These can move up to 200 inches per second or 5 meters per second. This is a combination between a belt-driven actuator and a rod-style actuator. That's not very common to hear. And what it's doing is, instead of rotating a screw, we're actually controlling the movement of the rod with a belt. And that's what gives us more speed capability. This, in particular, was designed to place nuts for a welding application in the automotive industry. But we've seen other projects that might get a really good use of this. So as you can see there in the video, it moves extremely fast. We needed to slow it down so you could see the rod moving. But it's been pretty interesting for a lot of customers. The main reason is because this was also done pneumatically back in the day, and it's still being done pneumatically. But the problem is that with pneumatics, you have different pressures in the line, pneumatic lines, and by having these variations, you don't get to the same position every time, or not at the rate that you would like it to go. Like it has variations of pressure and also velocity, etc., etc. So those knots that you see the rod placing, they were all over the floor. So that means that the operators need to be cleaning all the nuts from the floor. And you know, that's downtime that an automotive company cannot afford, right? Stopping for 1 hour in that type of industry, it's a lot of money. So we don't drop any nuts with this thing. It gets to the same position every time. It locates it where it needs to go, and it just does it very efficiently. So we can show that to your customers as well. We have our hygienic washdown products with water and movement. So also in the last decades, there was really not any hygienic solutions out there different than pneumatic, or, you know, that's pretty much it, because hydraulic is not hygienic, right? It uses oil to operate. So oil is not hygienic at all. So nobody wants their food with hydraulic fluid in it. So pneumatic was the best approach before. The problem is that also you have all the losses of efficiency because you have leaks of air, etc., etc. So we heard that from our customers, and we designed a bunch of actuators that are actually hygienic. So these actuators can be either stainless steel or could have a white epoxy paint. So you're able to actually, you know, be able to clean them inside and being able to have a really hygienic operation. They're rated, some of them at IP69K, which means that you can power wash them at high temperatures, high pressures, statically, and they would withstand the ingress, right? So as you can see in that video, you can wash them and they will not get water inside of them. Besides that, they could also have, you know, like the lubrication that is special for food and beverage or pharmaceutical. We can also include one of our motors in the back. So those NEMA 17 or NEMA 23 motors in the back could be servo motors or stepper motors. And they're all surrounded by this can that it's also rated IP69K. So you have the whole solution and then just a cable that goes to the drive, and that drive can be put somewhere else in your control panel or somewhere. Also, this IMA, that it has the motor integrated into it. The motor is in the first 30% probably in the back, and then the remainder is just like the mechanical piece, right? So you can have this solution with the motor integrated, and it has this white epoxy paint, so it remains hygienic enough. And this one, that no one else in the world has it, Tolomatic is the only one that offers this. It's an integrated motor into the actuator as well, but it's also IP69K, and it's all made of stainless steel. So this is our IMA stainless steel, pretty cool product. As you can see in the back, it just has one cable that could stick out in the back, and that's what you use to send it to your PLC. and your drive. So that's as easy as it gets. And then the RSX, which is for extreme forces. This type of actuator is replacing hydraulics. A lot of people out there use hydraulics for high force applications. But the problem is that if you have a food application, beverage, pharmaceutical, you cannot leak any oil in there. And it's not a matter if the hydraulic solution will leak, it will leak. It's just a matter of when, right? So that's why in the recent decades, there was nothing out there that could replace hydraulics like that. But now we have it. It's this RSX hygienic. It can go to 40,000 pounds of force. We're working on higher forces even, but it has stainless steel components around it. So it's a pretty good solution for some applications. And yeah, so the backbone of all of these things to replace high forces is this thing you're seeing in the screen, is the roller screw. There's just a couple companies in the world, probably 5 or 6, that can make this type of machining with the roller screws, and Tolomatic is one of them. And this contact that these roller nuts have with the screw is that creates that extreme force. We can put them in basically all of our products you see there. So you can achieve high forces with also being hygienic wash down on stainless steel. All right. Not only we have the hydraulic conversion in hygienic setups, we also have it in normal setups. You can, instead of using your normal hydraulic conversion, we have also demos that can help showing your customer how to convert from hydraulic to electric. This demo, what it's doing, it's basically creating some resistance with some hydraulic actuators there. And what we're doing is measuring the pressure that happens when you extend or retract a hydraulic rod. By measuring the pressures, by knowing the bore size you have in the cylinder, and by knowing the diameter also of the rod, we can very easily calculate how much actual force is being developed in an application. The issue with hydraulic systems, as you may know, is that you size them higher many times than the actual force you need. And the reason is because you lose efficiency by transporting the oil or the hydraulic fluid in the pipelines. And by losing that much efficiency, you develop less force at the end. So a lot of people just calculate it by multiplying the pressure by the bore size, and that's it. But unfortunately, that's not really a real number that we get out of that. So we showed this demo to show the right way to calculate hydraulic forces and how to convert that to our electric actuators. Another demo we have is our roller screws. So I already mentioned this, but compared to the most common ball nuts, instead of having just a sphere connecting to a screw, these actually have a triangular shape. That's what touches the main screw. And by having a triangular shape, it has more points of contact. And by having more points of contact, you can develop way more force than a ball nut. So we can also show all these sizes that we have of roller screws. We're developing at a fast pace this type of technology. And as I mentioned before, there's not a lot of companies out there that have this type of technology available. So we have a really short lead time as well, because we make them here in the US, Tolomatic in Minnesota. We make them right here, so we have a pretty good lead time on those. All right, and then also we have a demo to show our gantry systems. You know, this is becoming really, really popular among people now that they know that they can control a system in a better way with electric motion. They are really, really hitting the deck here at Tolomatic. We're sizing a lot of gantry systems right now. So basically, the demo that you see here, it's the combination of a rod style and rodless actuators. That's me in my best attempt to draw with this thing, but you know, it's you actually change the inputs, analog inputs, 4 to 20 milliamps in this thing, And by changing with a couple of potentiometers, you are able to move the x-axis and the y-axis, and that way you're able to draw something in there, right? But what this demo is constructed is that it has an x-axis and its little brother, that it's an x prime. And the way it works is that the x-axis is controlled by one motor and a gearhead, and that creates the rotational motion, and the transfer of move from the x-axis to the x prime axis is done via a jack shaft and a couple couplers. So that way they're perfectly synchronized. You don't have any move like this that is not synchronized that could damage the whole system. It's perfectly synchronized in the x-axis. And then the y-axis is controlled by a secondary motor and drive, right? So it moves in this direction. And then vertically, we have our rod style actuator that is the RSA with one of our ACSI motors. As I mentioned before, this motion is done via analog inputs. So it's relatively easy to control if you're used to how the panel works. But yeah, you can challenge your clients to create some type of shape in the paper, right? All right. And then I want to show you this one that we created because we also drink here at Tolomatic. So this is actually a demo that is used to make drinks. All right. So in the top, you will see some bottles, and those bottles would normally not have just the artificial coloring, but they will have real stuff in them. And what it has is just creates a recipe, right? So it goes to different locations. In the x-axis, it has one of our rod-less actuators. And in the vertical axis, it has one of our ERD guided version of our ERDs, which is a rod-style actuator. So it moves to a certain location, chooses one of the bottles, and the vertical axis, what it does, it presses up and releases some of the liquid in a measured manner. In this case, it's like 2.5 ounces or something like that. All right, don't steal our idea. We'll put it in every bar in the US pretty soon here, but all right. So as you can see there, everything is controlled via an HMI, and this communication is Modbus TCP. And the Modbus TCP, what it's doing is that it sends a command to locate the rodless actuator in a certain location. And then it tells, all right, I'm done, I'm in position. And then the ERD, which is the vertical axis, it says, all right, you're done, then it's my turn. So they're just communicating between each other. And then at the end, you have your drink ready to go. All right. So in terms of how to schedule this and start showing this stuff to your clients. So we have a couple resources online. As you saw that website, you can show a couple videos to your customers, select the demo you want to show. But we also have this flyer that we're going to start distributing amongst you. And it shows the current demos we have right now. And, you know, this is open, right? We're always thinking on what's a good demo to demonstrate a certain application. So we're always trying to think on new ideas. At the moment, these are the ones that we have available, but certainly we can talk again and just, talk up different ideas. So yeah, these demos are available. You can just start talking to your RSM and, send this flyer to your customers, talk to your RSM, and just start making motion and make the sale.